Ieyasu was overthrown that September, replaced with Melanych's daughter, Zuditu. But since the idea of female rumour was almost as bad to these guys as an Islamic emperor, it was decided Zuditu needed a regent, someone who could give her reign a shot of testosterone. Care to guess who they chose? In early 1917, Selassie was appointed Zuditu's crown prince and heir apparent, and so began his unstoppable rise to power. In many ways, the pairing of Selassie and Zuditu was an odd one. While Selassie was aligned with Ethiopia's progressives, Zuditu was so conservative that she'd make Mitch McConnell look like a jowly Che Guevara. Yet there was something both Empress and Crown Prince had in common. They were both capable of being staggeringly ruthless. It was often said that Selassie crept like a mouse, but had the jaws of a lion, and those jaws started snapping shut even before he became heir apparent. In the battle against Ieyasu's forces, Selassie was merciless. Superior firepower and executions were deployed to solidify his grip on power. It was brutal, but it worked. Ethiopia failed to...
Emperor. Blackpill, real life. Get results. All right? He's born to be an emperor, and he died one, at least on the physical realm. But in spirit, he's immortal. Emperor.
Spiral into the predictable chaos. Combined with the destruction of Ieyasu's army in summer 1917, a larger crisis was averted. And so the Crown Prince was at last free to pursue his long-desired reforms. As the 1920s dawned, it was on an Ethiopia in the grip of furious change. Under Selassie's orders, new schools were being opened designed to educate the children of the elite along European lines. A professional civil service and bureaucracy was beginning to be brought in, taking power out of the hands of the feudal overlords. The first moves were even being made on the abolition of slavery, although it would be decades before a full-scale ban was implemented. Arguably, though, the most important changes were in Ethiopia's international relations. In 1923, Selassie took his country into the League of Nations, a kind of precursor to the UN, with added uselessness. To Selassie, though, the League's collective security seemed to guarantee Ethiopia's safety from colonial powers, as did his burgeoning friendship with those same powers. In 1924, he became Ethiopia's first ruler to make an international trip, traveling through Europe's great capitals and schmoozing everybody. While the stated reason for buttering up the Europeans was to encourage investment in private, Selassie was more direct, saying, "We need European progress only because we are surrounded by it." In other words, keep the mad colonizers at bay by letting them invest in Ethiopia's booming markets. And in the 1920s, those markets were really booming. With coffee selling spectacularly, more money was being freed up to construct roads and communication lines, while a new class of entrepreneurs was starting to emerge. It was, in short, a good era for progress, but not everybody was happy. In the palace, Zuditu and her conservative allies were stewing at the reforms upending their nation. From their perspective, Selassie's improvements were more like unforgivable decadence, the beginning of Ethiopia's slide into ignominy. So, in 1928, they decided to get rid of him, only to find themselves stepping right into those lions' jaws. The September 1928 coup was such a failure that Zuditu's limited authority collapsed. In the aftermath, she was forced to proclaim Selassie Negus, or King. But this title would only be a stepping stone. A year and a half after the coup, in the spring of 1930, Zuditu was found dead, apparently of complications relating to diabetes. With that, Selassie's takeover was complete. On November 2nd, 1930, the man who had been born to Fari Makonnen was crowned Ethiopia's 225th emperor. It's at this point that he took the name Haile Selassie, meaning Might of the Trinity, amid a lavish coronation ceremony. Held in Addis Ababa, Selassie's coronation was eye-wateringly expensive, involving all manner of spectacular uniforms and sumptuous decorations. Although the European press, including the novelist Evelyn Waugh, ridiculed it, they were missing the point. Selassie wanted to project a vision of Ethiopia with as much pomp and regalia as anything in Europe, a state that wasn't a potential colony, but an equal to anywhere where white men ruled. 8 months after taking power, he set out his new vision for this Ethiopia in writing. The 1931 constitution placed Selassie at the center of everything, a paternal ruler who always knew what was best for his people and could never be opposed. From now on, the King of Kings would rule as an absolute monarch. Alright, so we'll get back to today's video in just a second, but first, quick word from our brand new video sponsor, Under Lucky Stars. Under Lucky Stars, and so I've got mine right here. It's so paradise. Civic participation was almost non-existent, and the idea of anything as radical as a separation of power.
All right. All right, so let me step in here. All right, let me step in and give you my intake on this. All right, let me, Emperial, give intake of the one who influences me, the Emperor of all emperors, all right, Selassie himself, His Majesty. All right, right there, that photo, Emperor Selassie tries best to be diplomatic, you know what I mean? Not like China or Russia, you know what I mean? They self-absorb and they keep everything to themselves and they isolate themselves from society. Selassie was willing to take Ethiopia on the main stage. I mean, embrace Ethiopia, expose it, and become one with the world, with the United Nations. Back then, it was like leagues of nations. All right, all these Europeans, leaders, politicians, even down to the journalists. All right, they were just playing games with him. Right, they were just using him and playing games with him. You know, because at the end, when he needed the help of the leagues of nations, the leagues of nations had left him high and dry against Mussolini, who was the leader and the ruler of Italy. All right, they left him high and dry. All right, but before then, all of them was just, you know, being friendly with him, even including the American government, even including the American forces, the American powers, European powers, all of them. For, you know, they embraced him, they were being friendly with him but deep down they didn't like was a black emperor was ruling sovereign, all right, of his own nation, all right, because they expect every black country to be a peasant, you know, beneath them, all right. But Selassie, like I say, but even then, at the end, even a fellow black leader rise up against Selassie and then overthrow Selassie, all right. So even your own kind will try to rise up against you, all right. But at the end of the day, he's still emperor of all emperors, all right. Selassie, emperor of all emperor, my lord.
Ours was little more than a grim joke. Still, for all Selassie might have held the nation in an iron grip, it was at least one wrapped in a velvet glove, his autocratic tendencies softened by real improvements. The next power to take over the country, by contrast, would dispense with softness entirely. On the borders of Ethiopia, in Eritrea and modern-day Somalia, a fascist power was looking to expand. Benito Mussolini's dream was to establish an
Radio, see? This is the man radio, scumbag. Yeah, I said, man, Mussolini, you see him radio. Yeah, Mussolini, yo, him? Yeah, I said, me, I said on the world stage right now, Emperial, Mussolini, him? Listen, nigga, yo, fuck you, fuck your kind, fuck your ancestors, man, fuck your legacy, all right? Because you rise up against a black emperor, and you wanted him to bow beneath you, you know? You wanted him and his country to be under you, beneath you. Mussolini, man, fuck you, all right? I curse you, man. I curse your legacy, my lord. Okay? And Emperor Selassie, forever blessed.
East African Empire, one that would include all of Selassie's nation. Of course, as a member of the League of Nations, Ethiopia was supposedly covered by its joint security agreement, but Mussolini was willing to bet that the League was even more toothless than it seemed. In this, he would be proved depressingly right. Tensions started to climb in November 1934 when Ethiopian and Italian troops got caught in a series of skirmishes near the border of Italian Somaliland. This was followed by a massive build-up on the Italian side as Il Duce began preparing for war. But Selassie still believed membership of the League would save him. Rather than mobilize, he asked the League to adjudicate on the border dispute. He was still waiting for an answer when the invasion began. Opening on October 2nd, 1935, the Italo-Ethiopian War was short, it was grim, and it was humiliating. As Mussolini publicly declared he was on a mission to bring progress to this backwards nation, his troops unleashed chemical weapons while Italian planes dropped bombs on civilian populations. As one correspondent observed, this isn't a war. It isn't even a slaughter. It's the torture of tens of thousands of men, women, and children with bombs and poison gas. In the face of such
Yup, right there. And the European League of Nations, all countries, all across Europe, even America, United States, this country that I love. They left Selassie and Ethiopia to the mercy of his enemy. All of them backed away. All of them intentionally backed away. Because the League of Nations was agreement that Ethiopia was going to be protected by the League of Nations. But when it comes down to it, every other country left them high and dry. all right? Because all these countries are sucker-ass country, you know what I mean? League of Nations, all right? All of them, left them high and dry, you know? No, try and break, you know, do the best to break down his power, to break down his sovereignty, all right?
Dirty tactics. What hope did the Ethiopians have? On May 2nd, 1936, Haile Selassie boarded his imperial train and was taken away into exile. 3 days later, Addis Ababa fell. As Ethiopia crumbled, some of the Italian commanders suggested that they bomb Selassie's train, but Mussolini demurred. With a victory so complete, the fascist leader could afford to be magnanimous. 7 months after they first crossed the border, the Italians had triumphed. One of the only African states to avoid being colonized was now absorbed into the colony of Italian East Africa. Yet Selassie still clung to the hope that help might be coming. On the 20th of June, the 150-centimetre tall, that's 5'4" emperor, stood at a podium before the League of Nations in Geneva. As fascist observers booed, he made a dignified speech laying out why the League needed to act, how Italy had broken international law, the grave
You heard that? Right there. That's right. They broke the international laws, all because he was a black emperor. But I bet if he was a fellow white or European emperor, or American leader, they would back each other. They were supported. All the allies would support each other. But him, right here, they left him high and dry. All right. That why society, man, fuck society. You got a bunch of hypocrites.
Consequence of inaction. Famously, he ended with the prophetic phrase, "It is us today. It will be you tomorrow."
Yup. And guess what? And he's right. He predicted that. And guess who came afterwards? I mean, the most evil man had rise up out of Germany. All right. I'm not going to call his name here, but you know, everybody know who I'm talking about. Right after that, the most evil man had rise up out of Germany and destroy entire Europe. Yup.
At the end of Selassie's speech, the delegates applauded. Then they voted to take no action, while the most powerful...
Boop. See that? Take no action. Bunch of fucking suckers, man. All these countries are suckers, Joe. Because they want, especially a black lord, a black emperor, and they want you to be kowtow and bowing. All right? Bunch of suckers over here, man. Fuck him.